Welcome to the Stoic Tide. You might think you'd know if she slept with another man, but what if the signs were so subtle you couldn't even see them until it was too late? In every relationship, there's a moment when something shifts. The warmth fades, the intimacy dies, and you're left wondering if you've just been replaced without knowing. This isn't about paranoia. This is about Stoicism, about seeing truth without emotion clouding your eyes. Because the man who refuses to see is the man who silently signs his own betrayal. If you miss the clues I'll show you today, you won't just lose a woman. You'll lose your self-worth, your dignity, and your freedom to walk away before it's too late. Stick with me till the end, because unless you see all 5 signs in full, you won't have the clarity to trust your instinct. If this message hits something inside you, if it sounds like something a friend of yours might need to hear, don't hesitate. Hit that like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with someone who's still trapped in the dark. It could be the wake-up call he didn't know he needed. Let's begin with the first shift. Most men overlook something that starts not with her words, but with her body. Let's begin with the first entry. The silence that wasn't there before. It never starts with a scream. It starts with silence, but not just any silence. A new kind, one you've never heard before. You're lying next to her. Same bed, same time. But something in her body feels like it's facing the wall even if she isn't. And your gut, your ancient male instinct, tenses up like an animal sensing something off in the wind. That's the first whisper of a truth no one wants to hear. Someone else may have already stepped into the space you still think is yours. What men often miss is that intimacy doesn't vanish all at once. It evaporates in tiny, invisible degrees. Her skin doesn't lean into your touch the way it used to. Her breath doesn't pause when you kiss her neck. She used to exhale into you. Now she exhales away. That's not stress. That's not mood. That's emotional absence. And if you blink too long, you'll miss the signs until your place beside her becomes a placeholder for someone else's memory. Here's the brutal part. She won't tell you. She might not even admit it to herself, but her behavior will shift in ways too small to name unless you're paying attention. She'll say she's just tired, that she has a lot on mind. And sure, that might be true once or twice. But when that narrative becomes her shield, that's when you start testing reality against projection. Don't argue. Don't guess, just watch. Men with awareness don't chase affection. They track change. So here's a simple move you can make tonight. The next time you go to bed, don't touch her. Don't try to hold her. Just observe her emotional response to your distance. A woman who still desires you will notice the space and move toward it. One who has slept with another, she'll let it grow colder. Maybe she won't even flinch. This is what separates a man of stoicism from a man of desperation. The Stoic doesn't beg for what's already fading. He doesn't perform for borrowed attention. He reads the scent of betrayal not in perfumes but in patterns. And if you're thinking, but what if I'm wrong? That fear is already a sign, because deep down you know what real closeness feels like. This isn't it. Let this sink in. Most men lose not because they were cheated on, but because they stayed too long ignoring the truth. The slow drift is the enemy. When you normalize her coldness, when you explain away the excuses, you're not just losing her, you're losing self-respect. That's the first crack in the mirror, and once it breaks, the rest of the reflection can never look the same again. But here's the twist. What if the problem isn't the distance, but how quickly she tries to erase it? What if she comes back too fast, too warm, too sweet, like she's trying to wash something off? If that thought just hit a nerve, then you're about to see what happens next. Now for the second revelation, the freshness that makes no sense. There's a type of cleaning that's not about hygiene. It's about hiding. A woman might walk through the door freshly showered, glowing even, but it doesn't feel like self-care. It feels like a reset, like she scrubbed something off her body. She doesn't want you to smell. Men often dismiss this as just a shower, but your nose picks up more than you think. Scent tells stories, and sometimes they're not yours. She never used to care about coming home sweaty after the gym or skipping a wash when things got busy. But now there's a new routine. Showers that last longer than usual. Sudden changes in perfume. Underwear swapped midday for no clear reason. It might seem small, but rituals reveal guilt. Especially the rituals that weren't there before. This isn't about being paranoid. This is about observation. A woman who has slept with another doesn't always confess with her mouth. She confesses with her soap, with her urgency to smell neutral, with her subtle panic to erase. If she's racing to get clean before she hugs you, before she gets close, ask yourself who was close to her before you. Most guys brush this off because they don't want to see it. They call it overthinking. They label it insecurity. But let me ask you this. If she used to take her time undressing around you, but now she keeps her distance until she's changed, what's changed? It's not just behavior. It's a shift in presence. She's in the room, but she's not really with you. Want to test it without saying a word? Next time she comes home and showers right away, don't react. Don't question her, but go hug her afterwards. And notice her emotional response. If she stiffens, if her affection feels forced or her fakeness bleeds through in her smile, you've already seen more than she thinks. You don't need proof. You need clarity. Masculine power isn't about control. It's about restraint. The man who watches in Stoicism without chasing explanations becomes dangerous because he cannot be deceived. He understands that every sudden interest in hygiene, every perfect excuse, every sweet-smelling apology ... might just be a mask. And once you see behind it, you can't unsee it. But let me take you deeper, because cleaning the skin is one thing, but cleansing the conscience that gets messy. When the guilt doesn't wash off, it spills out sideways. And that's when you'll start to feel the fire, not in her body but in her temper. On to the next revelation, the blame game that feels too personal. When a woman feels guilt, she rarely says, "I did something wrong." Instead, she flips the mirror. Suddenly, you become the problem. Your texts are too dry. Your presence feels off. You didn't notice she changed her hair. At first, it feels like regular relationship friction, but soon it snowballs into endless criticism. She's not venting. She's transferring her emotional response to a truth she refuses to admit. This isn't about the dishes. It's about distraction. Guilt has a sneaky way of showing up as irritation. Her behavior becomes short, snappy, illogical, and yet you find yourself apologizing for things you didn't even do. That's not conflict. That's deflection. She wants to believe she's justified in pulling away from you. So she starts creating a story where you're the reason why she's drifting. A self-made permission slip to emotionally check out. Here's the trap. Most men try to fix it. You lean in. You listen harder. You try to be better, but you're not addressing the root. You're watering weeds. The truth is, you're being drawn into a narrative that protects her ego from facing her betrayal. And while you're trying to please, she's building a case against you in her own head. So what do you do when you're under invisible attack? You don't defend. You don't explain. You stand still. Next time she lashes out for something small, don't take the bait. Look her in the eye and say calmly, "You seem upset, but I don't believe I'm the reason why." Then stop talking. Let the silence do what it's supposed to do. Reveal the confusion underneath her mask. Men forget that Stoicism is not passivity. It's control. A man who doesn't argue becomes a mirror, and mirrors are terrifying to those hiding lies. If her guilt is real, your stillness will unnerve her. If her heart is still yours, it'll break her. Either way, your role is not to convince, it's to observe. And in that observation, you reclaim your dignity. And here's a twist no one talks about. Sometimes when the guilt grows too loud to hide, it turns into affection. Not real affection, theatrical affection. Overcompensation. She kiss you harder, hug you more, offer you sweet words dipped in sugar and fakeness, and if you're not paying attention, you'll mistake it for love coming back. And here a quick pause. If this kind of insight is opening your eyes to things you used to overlook, go ahead and hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning. Let's keep going. Now we come to the hardest truth to face. When her body tells a different story. Words can lie, smiles can fake it, but the body, it's terrible at keeping secrets. A woman can rehearse what she say, plan her reactions, and even convince herself that nothing happened. But her body language, her intimacy cues, her touch, they betray her before her mouth ever opens. It's in the pause before she kisses you, the hesitation when you reach for her, the tension in her spine that never used to be there. Men ignore these things because they're subtle. But real change never comes with fireworks. It comes with friction. She used to melt into your chest. Now she stiffens. She used to gasp when you touched her back. Now it's mechanical. She used to make eye contact during intimacy. Now her gaze disappears. You tell yourself she's tired, stressed, distracted, but your instinct knows better. This isn't about mood. It's about absence. Here's a practical check most guys never think of. During your next moment together, slow things down. Watch. Don't perform. Feel the rhythm of her body. Is it in sync with yours? Or is she just going through the motions? If she's emotionally disconnected, even her pleasure will feel scripted. Her breathing off, her timing wrong. That's not desire. That's fakeness trying to play a role she no longer believes in. And this is where most men start doubting themselves. You wonder, am I not good enough anymore? No, that's not the question. The right question is, why is she even here if she's not with me? When her presence vanishes during intimacy, that's not something you fix with flowers or date nights. That's a wound that started somewhere else, probably in someone else's bed. You want real power? Step into awareness. Stop thinking more effort will pull her back. You're not trying to reignite a fire. You're competing with a fire she's already burning elsewhere. A man with self-worth doesn't perform to win love back. He recognizes when love has already left the room. That's not defeat. That's clarity. That's masculine power. Here's where Stoicism becomes your shield. Feel what you feel, but don't chase what's fading. The next time she touches you, let yourself observe instead of react. Ask yourself, is this connection ... or camouflage? Because sometimes the most painful part isn't her betrayal. It's the moment you realize you've been making love to a ghost. But let me push this further. Because what if after this hollow performance she starts acting like everything's fine again? What if her absence during intimacy is followed by her suddenly becoming busy, out late, new habits, new stories? What happens when time itself stops making sense? Now we open the last sign, the most obvious and at the same time the most ignored. When her time stops belonging to you, real love always makes room. Even in chaos, even in exhaustion, a woman who's truly yours finds ways to be near you physically, emotionally, and in time. But when that space starts to shrink, when her presence becomes irregular, when lateness becomes a pattern, you're no longer her priority. You're her placeholder, her backup plan, her emotional safety net. While her mind drifts somewhere else, she didn't used to be late. And if she was, she cared. She'd rush, apologize, kiss you like she meant it. Now she walks in with a casual, almost bored. Hey, the excuses start stacking. Traffic was wild. My phone died. I lost track of time. But it's not about time. It's about change. She's testing the limits of your tolerance. Every delayed arrival is a check. Will he say something? Will he let it slide again? Most guys let it slide. You don't want to seem controlling or paranoid. You keep silent, telling yourself you're being mature. But Stoicism isn't silence. It's clarity without emotional outbursts. So here's what you do. Next time she walks in late with another recycled story, don't argue. Don't dig for details. Just look at her and say, you weren't here. And that says enough. Then say nothing else. Let her sit with it. This is how a man draws a line with outrage. You're not accusing. You're acknowledging. That observation alone is more powerful than any fight. Because if she still cares, she feel it. And if she doesn't, your silence gives her the space to reveal everything. A person who's committed won't tolerate that space. A woman who has slept with another might use that space to slip further away. Want a way to track this without overthinking? Stop focusing on what she says. Start focusing on the pattern. How often does she come home late? How consistent are her stories? Do they change each time she retells them? Are the details shallow or overly rehearsed? Does her emotion match the words, or is her tone flat, disconnected? The truth always slips through in the gaps between her sentences. And here's what most men don't realize until it's too late. You don't need to catch her in the act. You don't need evidence. What you need is a decision. When all 5 of these signs line up, when the body, the rituals, the projection, the absence, and the time all start to change, she's already gone. The only question left is, will you stay behind pretending? But here's the harshest reality. Sometimes you already have the answer, but you're stalling your own freedom. You're collecting red flags like trophies, hoping one will turn into a confession. But masculine power isn't built on begging for closure. It's built on self-respect, on knowing that once your instinct, your observation, and her behavior all point in the same direction, you don't need her to admit anything. You already know. And when you act from that awareness, the power shifts back to where it belongs with you. So now that you've seen the signs, the subtle shifts, the moments that most men overlook, the question isn't, did she betray you? It's, are you ready to stop betraying yourself? Because staying blind when your gut is screaming is the fastest way to lose not just a relationship, but your entire self-worth. Think about it. How many times have you looked away when the truth was right in front of you? How many late nights, strange silences, or forced smiles did you swallow just to keep the peace? You don't need to answer out loud, but you do need to answer to yourself. And from this day forward, you don't see what you've seen here. Drop a comment below and tell me this. Which of the 5 signs hit you the hardest and why? Or just write, I choose clarity over comfort. That one line might be the start of your comeback. If you watched until now, thank you. Seriously, not just for your time, but for your willingness to face hard truths most men run from. That already puts you ahead of 90% of people. If this video helped you see something clearer or spark something you didn't even know needed light, do me one favor. Hit that like, share it with a friend who's stuck, Subscribe the Stoic Tide and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. There's more truth ahead, and I promise it's worth sticking around for.